see some movement at the takeoff zone. It's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, guy, David. It's an incredible day here. Tuesday, February 6th in Southern California and perhaps around the world, except where it's February 7th. But regardless,
For those
it's
listening in Australia.
right, exactly. We got a lot going on in the surf world, including an insane encounter with orcas. Of course, the Pipe Masters is happening the second day of the event. Not the Pipe Masters, the Lexus Pipe Pro, I should say. And man, it's been a day of buzzer beaters. And of course, there are cloud break discussions to be had. And of course, must see moments and a lot going on, man. Some Felipe follow up, perhaps.
I think let's lead with Pipe. How can we not? It's literally running right now while we're recording this. We're recording this at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and John Florence just exited the water. It's the round of 32. They're going to run the round of 16 men's immediately after they finish the round of 32. Survival leagues are getting slashed left and right. Scott narrowly made it through with Iago Doran, a buzzer beater moment.
Oh my Lord,
I was salivating watching him needing a score with 2 minutes left. I was like, oh, Scott's out at the beginning of the season. Yes. This gets me one step closer to $7,000 and 3 Panda surfboards.
Yeah, well, and good for you. I mean, you're still in it, I think. So that particular buzzer beater was Iago Dora and Jacob Wilcox. Jacob Wilcox commanded the heat the entire way up until 1 minute left. And he defensively sort of kept Iago off of a wave and lost his priority. And Iago caught a solid, clean backdoor wave right afterwards, got pitted from takeoff, and then some solid turns to finish. He was celebrating. I was celebrating. And Iago fans around the world were celebrating. Then Jacob got the next wave with seconds left, and the camera angle made it look like it was deep and long, and my stomach dropped. I was like, "Oh my God, this can't be happening to me." But no, it wasn't going to be enough of a score for Wilcox, and Iago Dora moves on. My Survival League campaign continues.
Man, honestly, both of those surfers could have won that heat. Jacob Wilcox, as a rookie, looked unbelievably strong. Just a phenomenal surfer, but also just the game plan, like sticking to the game plan, delivering when you need to deliver. I thought he looks, coming out of this event, he maybe looks like the strongest rookie.
I don't know about that.
That's kind of how I felt.
Pinto.
Well, Crosby, though.
Lord, that guy looks good.
Yeah, but he didn't have a backup score. Like, he left holes in that heat. He won the heat, but Jacob didn't win the heat. So you could make the argument for Crosby. And by the way, Eli Hanneman won his first heat. So Eli's in the conversation too. But anyways, it wasn't to be for Jacob, and it was to be for Iago. And that's the reason why you picked Iago going into this event, is you've seen these moments of steeliness from him with brilliant surfing, and he delivered again. So good pick.
Yeah, thank you. And there's been some buzzer beaters and some, as you mentioned, some survival league just detritus, just some trash,
Yeah.
And one of them, of course, early on was Kelly Slater lost to Ethan Ewing. I don't know how much of a shocker that was relative to some of the other ones, but Slater's out of the event. And there's no doubt people chose Slater. I know so because I've gotten a text from people who are like, here we go again, first event, I'm already out, and that's the kind of the beauty of the survival league. But one of the bigger one, well, probably the biggest one, was Ramsey Boukheim from Morocco. And I apologize if I'm saying his name wrong, over Jack Robinson, another buzzer beater. And it was sketchy. It was this backdoor one that he just kind of barely squeaked out the doggy door. And that was a surprise. Jack Robinson, certainly a survival league pick by many.
Yeah, I don't want to brush past the Kelly conversation because
Please, yeah, go ahead.
I would have bet money on Kelly looking at this forecast. And in fact, I almost did pick him for the survival pick. Kelly, and that's why people picked him actually, was because they're not going to use him at a bunch of other spots on tour. But at Pipe, when Pipe is kind of, big, unruly, it's not perfectly groomed, he would be the pick. Ethan Ewing, though, coming off of last season's second place finish, he's only gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And then coming into this event, I think I told you last week when we recorded after round one, I go, he's my he's like one of the highlight surfers from the first round of the event, despite how great everybody else surfed who's already won pipe, he was still a standout. So I feel like, and the fact that he then brought that again against Kelly, I think Ethan is the one to watch for a world title this year.
Yeah, look, it's early. I found myself kind of pinning my like going, wow, what if Crosby, Colapinto, and Griffin are in the finals at lowers together? Like how exciting that would be.
Wow.
But then I caught myself going, wait a minute, we're not even finished with the first event of the season. Hold on, let's just wait a little bit. But it's easy to get excited about what we saw there with Ethan Ewing. The guy's incredible, and yeah,
So the big story though of this day that we are currently recording on is the former world champs and the former pipe winners who are out of the event in the round of 32. You mentioned Kelly, you mentioned Jack Robinson, Gabriel Medina lost to your hype man, Crosby Colapinto. And that nobody saw coming, because this is a day where you would put all the money on Gabe, because if the waves actually come in their heat, he's going to be the one who gets the 2 9s. If the waves don't come, he's the one who's going to sit inside and do airs and get 2 6s. And that's not what happened. He got 2 2s. And Crosby waited patiently, and I think he waited 25 minutes with priority for the majority of the time, and then got the wave of the heat, which was an 8 point something. He had a small backup score, but Gabe was up against the wall, basically needing a 9 point ride. And if Crosby would have gotten even a 2 point ride, Gabriel would have been comboed. So it was a steely performance from the rookie. And that wave that he got wasn't an easy wave to surf. It was a 8-foot backdoor wave. He had a hard time kind of getting over the ledge to get into it. But once he got in, he had to pump like a madman. He did like 2 or 3 pumps, kind of made it over the foam ball craziness, came out, and then slammed the end section, which is something you don't see a lot. So he looked like a professional,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I was pretty excited about that heat, And speaking of, this sort of survival league wipeout, I'm sure that more than half of the league is gone easily.
Yeah.
Gabe, how many people chose Gabe? How many took Jack Robinson? How many took Kelly Slater? How many took Idolo? Um, I think there's some others too that I'm missing here.
Yeah.
But
Kanoa's out.
Kanoa's out, and Seth Moniz out. Didn't Caleb Robson just kick butt on?
Maybe Caleb's being interviewed right now as the winner. So was he against
Caleb got an insane 9.33. There's just been so many buzzer beaters. A lot of these heats, it all came down to the last minute. Now, I don't know how you define buzzer beater. Is it 2 minutes remaining? Is it 1 minute remaining? Is it 5 seconds remaining? Seems to me within 1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Certainly not a buzzer beater, but relative to surfing and how the ocean moves and stuff, you need a minute to catch a wave. There's been a lot of last minute heroics, and it's been fun watching.
It's been an exciting day. One thing that I think stands out for me this season, automatically, it might have been the last couple seasons, but the rookies are not afraid of Gabriel Medina or Kelly Slater. Like they're phenomenal. And like guys like Caleb Robson, he's not a rookie this year. Shoot, you know what? A listener called me out on the pronunciation, and I think I might have the call pulled up. He's like, dude, if you're going to be saying his name, you got to say it right. It's an Australian listener. Let me just play this call real quick so that I can say his name correctly.
G'day lads, it's Hatchos with a listener line call, and I'm calling in about a bit of on the nose feedback. So when you guys are talking about the Cowardly Lion, there's one surfer you love to go to in particular as a juxtaposition, and that is Cal Robbo. Now, what is his name? Is it Calum? Is it Caleb? No. Callum Robson, Cal Robbo, the Aussie underground legend. Now, in my opinion, if you're going to talk him up, you better say his name right. Keep up the work. Adios and aloha.
Callum. Thank you. Hatcho Shapes on Instagram, by the way. Callum Robson. So
No,
yes, Callum.
Cal Robbo. I think that was really the thrust of the call.
Exactly.
Cal Robbo.
And by the way, I've got the contest streaming right now while we're talking. And
Yeah.
Matt McGillivray, South African surfer, just airdropped into a backdoor bomb and made his way out of that one too. So he's another guy in this conversation where I feel like the rookies too, but also these guys who, honestly have a hard time maintaining sponsors. I think McGillivray just got on Visla this past season, so that's great. It's good to have that for them to have a guy on tour as well. But these guys are underdogs and they shouldn't be. They continually drop tens. Literally both these guys have tens last season, the last 2 seasons actually.
Yeah, you're right. It's an exciting season already, sort of unfolding. I mean, I'm excited to be excited about it. You know what I mean? Like it's cool that we've got some storylines. And by the way, another one of the buzzer beaters that we didn't speak about yet was Jordy Smith over Idolo. Did you happen to catch that?
I missed the heat entirely. Tell me about it.
Okay, Idolo caught the wave of the day.
Oh,
Well,
really?
it might have been, well, up to that point for sure. So Idolo took off on a backdoor wave super late, kind of dragging his butt, pulling in down the wave face. And he had to kind of squeak underneath a little bit of a chandelier one that didn't look like it was going to, be all that. But he was so deep and so behind the foam ball. And of course, the angle looking right into the pit showed it all. He was basically whited out by the foam ball, came over it, drove through it, and arm in the air. And it was one of those, everyone on the beach exploded. Like it was mental. And that was early on in the heat, probably the first wave of the heat. And Jordy just sort of nipped his way around. And then at the end, last 30 seconds, Jordy, I think he needed like a 4 something. He got a 5 something. And boom, buzzer goes off, and Jordy's over Idolo. And here we have another world champ that's not moving on.
So Idolo didn't have a backup score, really?
No, he had like an 8.33 and a 2.
Because I didn't see that, and that sounds like he may be in form. But my question was to you was going to be, were we right when we were assessing his Instagram profile glow up in the last 8 months?
No.
And he's kind of diffused his focus away from competitive surfing?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
He was
good.
absolutely ripping. And even more to the point, yesterday when it was Mac Daddy, Idolo was out there charging and catching some bombs and doing what world champions do, which is drive through massive pipe barrels on off days or whenever it's presents itself. And so,
And now,
yeah,
so
Idolo's
that
on form.
so those are two storylines. We'll tease them apart. Let's talk about yesterday. Should they? There's been a lot of controversy online about whether or not they should have run the contest. The commentators have been addressing it in the booth throughout today's competition. And Jessie Miley Dyer, when she made the call today to run the event on Instagram, directly talking to the camera, after she made the call, the second half of her Instagram message was why they didn't run yesterday. Obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight today, but what are your thoughts on should they have run yesterday?
I feel like they should have run yesterday. It was, 10 to 15 foot second, third reef cappers, second reefers. It was unruly. It was moving around quite a bit. It was an experts only day. There would have been heats where guys wouldn't have even scored. It's quite possible, especially early in the day where, a one wave score could have won the heat. That being said, so it would have been a bit of a slog from a fan's perspective. We would have been like watching a lot, but I ended up watching it all anyway. I watched Surfline all day long. I was just watching it because it was so big. Every time a wave capped, you just sat there and watched the set come in. It was like that size where you were excited about it, regardless of if guys rode waves or not. And so the bottom line is that they should have run this. It was 10 to 15 foot pipeline. It was that situation which often occurs where it's a little bit unruly, and as the day progresses it gets a little cleaner, a little better, a tide, everything kind of gets better and better and better. And there would have been some momentous rides that the WSL could have just proclaimed. There would have been guys getting spit out of just massive Jerry Lopez tubes, the kind of thing that you see Derek Ho coming out of in 91 or 93 when it back second reefers that you can't believe he made it. And he made it. And so I feel like they should have run. Now, I understand why they didn't run. I think the surfers, I can't speak for them, but from what I understand today, listening to Shane Dorian, many of them were like, nah, let's not do it. And the other half was like, are you kidding me? Let's do it. Like there was according to Dorian, there was a pure polar divide there. There was, schools of thought that didn't line up, but I feel like they should have run it just because it was all time Mac Daddy. And you and I and the rest of the fan base wants to see that. We want to see massive 10 to 15 foot pipeline. And if it's not quite perfect enough, so be it.
So you say that with the benefit of hindsight. Yesterday morning, did you feel this way?
No, it's weird. I got to admit, I was looking at it and I understood while there was a continuation of the, hey, we're on hold and we're going to be on hold now for another 45 minutes and come check back in an hour. And I was watching it all day long. And let me just say this. I don't think they made a mistake, but I think that as a fan, I selfishly would have liked to seen some of the, pipeline in all its friggin' craziness.
So I think there needs to be a much stronger direction from the contest directors in understanding and fully knowing what their goal here is. And if they had strong direction, if you were running it, if I was running it, our direction is let's see the cream rise to the top in conditions that only the best, most qualified surfers in the world can rise to. And yesterday was the day to really figure that out. Yesterday was the day where there will be two guys who have the right equipment. They had to run back to the house to get the right equipment, but they have the right equipment. They have that equipment dialed because they've been in those waves in the past and they've worked with their shaper to get, and they're going to be the ones who are out there who find the diamond in the rough. And that's all we care about. The idea of the WSL thinking that they need all of us watching 8 hours a day, it's just not going to, there's very few people are going to watch 8 hours a day. What they really want is the highlight clip that's going to end up on ESPN that they're going to be able to show year after year after year after year. And yesterday was the day to get that done. Like to walk away from yesterday is a complete miss, but it's only from your and my perspective, or like a lot of the fan perspective. It's not Jesse's perspective. It's not the powers that be at the WSL's perspective. And they stated as much. They said there were some gems out there yesterday, but there wasn't enough to go around for everybody. Your and my response to that is you have way too many surfers on tour. The fact that you're ever looking for enough for 32 surfers is a failed initial kind of, it's a futile effort, no matter where you are in the ocean. That means you need multiple swells, multiple days below. So that's where the misstep was yesterday. And you do see, it's easy with hindsight to point out the waves that were amazing yesterday. There's Instagram clips of them out today that are just like, it looked perfect, if you just isolate those. But guess what? You're not going to get those today. Those were only available yesterday and you blew it. You missed it.
I'll give you a quick little anecdote about one of the situations regarding the WSL and the way it used to be. So I was on the beach. I think it was the year that Jamie O'Brien won. I'm not exactly sure, but the opening day, and back then it was the Rip Curl Pro. It was the Pipeline Master. It was the Pipeline Masters brought to you by Rip Curl or whatever. It was Rip Curl's event, right? And I was in Jamie's backyard and everyone's there and we're looking at it and everyone's hemming and hawing and there's guys that are catching some bombs, but there's just like 10 guys out and it's like Kainoa McGee is out. He's just like ripping, and there's like some local guys that are out. And then Tom Curran paddles out. Tom Curran gets one that's just sick all the way across on like a 7.6, and I remember Rabbit is in Jamie's backyard and everyone's kind of hemming and hawing. I'm sitting, I'm like listening in, like what's going on, and they're all talking about it and they're not sure. And who comes over but Claw Warbrick, the head of Rip Curl. He comes over to the backyard and he's talking to Rabbit, who's the ASP director at the time. And he basically goes, "What are we waiting for? Let's go." And now you see that the power of having the brands be in control of the events and be able to tell the ASP director, "Hey, I'm ready to do this and I'm the guy with the check. So let's go." And of course, Claude, sitting there with his arm doing this deal, and boom, it's on. And sure enough, we got those incredible moments that you talk about.
Yeah.
And it was a day of, I mean, it was just incredibly exciting to watch.
Yeah. We know that there is going to be downtime and that there's going to be the wash throughs and all that. But what we want are those moments where the very few rise to the top and confront the challenge and elevate their own potential, you know? And so hedging your bet and looking for days that are, quote, safer. I'm saying quote because that's a word that they've used in the last 24 hours. It's not doing anybody a favor. It just shows a real lack of understanding and direction from the people making the decisions.
Yeah, it's and of course, look, social media lately hasn't been too kind. Everybody's sort of quick to make a judgment one way or another, and certainly yesterday's failure to run was called out loudly, and I think, as you mentioned, justly. They should have
Yeah,
run.
my favorite comment said, "What? Not enough Yeti coolers to give out?" Because
Why
they
is that
give
your
you
favorite?
well because it's hilarious that they give away a Yeti cooler if you get a 10-point ride.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean it's absurd. A 10-point ride, you get a Yeti cooler. That's the gift, right? So that's hilarious. But the joke, yeah, there would have been a bunch of tens yesterday. Oh, you don't have enough coolers? You guys are going to run out of coolers? You don't have enough money to fund this thing?
Run
Like,
to Costco, get some more coolers.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I've kind of, the WSL is kind of the worst at their communications department in terms of transparency, whether it's for judges scoring or whatever reasons why they're running. I appreciate that Jessie Miley Dyer addressed it and gave her explanation, even though I think her explanation was misguided. I still appreciate her confronting it. However, the one thing that they have not confronted directly is, where are the women? Day one was phenomenal and they chose to run them in instead. Okay, fine. Scheduled women for the following kind of event, basically round one of the men, round two of the women. They have not run the women yesterday when it was the day of days, or the big day, or today when it's a little lesser of a day. And I haven't heard any commentary on their reasons for why not, or why they wouldn't have run the women on day one when they ran them in.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about that other than the lack of communication about it. I mean, I'm sure that the women are going to get their moment, and whether it's the men or the women this early in the event, I mean, whatever, like we're going to see them. I think maybe you're disappointed that we're just simply not getting the communication about when we're going to see them.
Well, what kind of conditions are they going to run the women in? That's the
Well,
question.
yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I mean, there's plenty of swell lined up, and I don't, I would suggest to you that today seems like the day they would have run the women if they were afraid of women getting in big waves or, unruly
Exactly.
situations. So
Yeah.
I think, that bodes well for putting the women out in equal conditions as the men. Like the next, 3 days from now, it could be 6 to 8 feet.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I'm curious to hear too. So I guess my question is, yes, it is the communication, but part of built into that communication is, if all of your other communication is about equality, then where's the parity here? You know what I mean? Like, explain, what are you waiting for? Are you looking for unequal conditions to run the women in? Because that seems to be what it is.
No, no. I think there's a lot of low hanging fruit here to terrorize the WSL. I don't think this is it.
They've put
Whether they
themselves in
should
the
have
situation.
whether they should have run the women today or not,
So,
First of all, I don't think too many people care.
so the other low hanging fruit is you were saying Italo surfing yesterday. That's what we want our world champs to do. Coming off of the Felipe conversation last week,
Yeah, go ahead.
the one way he could eradicate any commentary about his shortcomings would be to paddle out yesterday, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Where was Felipe?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know where I saw him? On his Instagram stories, pushing kids into waves and ankle slappers, which I'm applauding him. Good job pushing kids into waves. But literally, while pipe was 10 to 15 feet, he's posting Instagram clips on his stories at what, wasn't Waikiki, but honestly looked like Waikiki.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I, you know, what I find interesting is that some people are suggesting that we're not allowed to criticize Felipe, that for some reason he's off limits, that we're somehow supposed to look the other way, that we're not supposed to be fans, not supposed to do what fans do. We're not allowed to, stand in judgment of the competitors and the competition and their performances. And that seems unrealistic to me. This is sort of a very simple equation. We have a two-time defending world champion. We have Pipeline. It's the most dangerous, most perfect, and career-making. It's the pinnacle of the sport, really. And you can either step up or you don't. But either way, expect fans to comment. Expect fans to be loud. Expect fans to be ignorant, for sure. Expect fans to lack empathy. Okay, but fans can also be smart and compassionate and empathetic. But don't expect fans to be quiet about the two-time world champion not charging pipe when everyone else is. Not about this. We're not going to be quiet about this. And it's not a personal attack. It's a criticism and a judgment of the performance that we watched before our very eyes. It's like, yeah, there was no insurrection at all. What are you talking about? We all watched it unfold on live TV, a billion of us. You know what I mean? And what about the Olympics, by the way? How is Felipe going to tackle his fears at Chopu?
Yeah.
And interestingly, I found this quote on Beach Grit from his father. And this is his father, Toledo Sr., talking about Felipe. And I quote, "The truth is that Felipe is afraid of hitting the coral bottom. That is the fear he has of hitting himself there and really hurting himself and suffering an irreversible injury. It's something that stays in his head," end quote. Now, we all have that fear. I have that fear. But I'm not the two-time defending world champion. And by the way, I've also seen some really insightful stuff on the interweb, which is like, all you got to do is raise your hand and go, hey, you know what? I got some issues here. I am actually afraid of this and I'm working on it and blah, blah, I think that he could have easily gained more empathy and more sympathy if he would have taken a different tact rather than,
well,
kind of hating on us for making fan criticism.
Yeah. Can you clarify for me? I didn't read the Beachkid article, but I seem to remember Felipe's dad, Ricardinho Toledo, making that comment a couple years back at Chopu.
Oh, this is about Chopu, which is why I brought it up after I mentioned the Olympics.
Because he also took to Instagram last week to defend Felipe in regard to the latest run at Pipeline.
Yesterday.
But no, even before this was a few days ago when I saw it. But he didn't mention the reef in this recent post. What he did mention, I wish I had it in front of me and I could read it to you, but what he mentioned basically was lay off. Everybody has vulnerabilities and it's very rude basically to pick at somebody when they're down or when they're vulnerable. And so all of this is a reflection to me of a much bigger problem. These are just symptoms of a much bigger chink in Felipe's armor, essentially. If it was just that he had a shortcoming in big waves, that's trainable, fixable. You can work your way through that. But I have this fear, this deep-seated fear of these things, and everybody around me is going to coddle me and not make me address the fear. Even my own fans are going to go out and attack my critics and make me think that I'm the greatest in the world and not address the actual fear or this shortcoming in my game
Well,
that I
hold on.
need
Let
to
me
make
just
up
say,
for.
in his defense, we don't know that he's not addressing his fear. I don't think that's fair. He might very well be, and I would suggest to you that I bet he is trying to address his fear. But the rest of the stuff you said, his fan base kind of getting in his corner and backing him and saying, "Just leave him alone," is,
If
whatever.
if there's some version of him addressing the fear that is him working with a sports psychologist to get to the root of the problem, then maybe you're right, that's happening behind closed doors. What I see is him not taking off on the peak in heat 1 and then in the elimination round claiming that he had food poisoning, which was an abject falsehood. You know what I mean? Like, those of us have had food poisoning. You cannot leave the bathroom. You can't fight with people on the internet. You will not be seen later on the deck drinking a beer, socializing, like, full stop. So the food poisoning thing, and then, arguing everybody who's criticizing you about that is also an indicator to me that he's not addressing the fear. All signs point to, no, I'm the greatest and you can't question it. You know what I mean? Like, shut up. Who are you to question my shortcut? That's where I'm seeing. So that's why I say that. But at any rate, I think, like I said, this is a peek into, for those of us who are tracking and trying to make picks for later in the season or next year, even, this shows a huge vulnerability in Felipe that I don't see him actively addressing, where we saw Gabriel Medina have a breakdown at times and then go back into his silence, work on that thing, come back with chapter 2, of his career, stronger and actually more kind of fortified against his opponents. I see this just becoming a larger gaping vulnerability for Felipe.
Yeah, I sent you an email that we received from a listener, Nick, a guy I ran into who I've spoken with a few times about the show and about topics. And he sent along the 2011 Billabong Pro, which featured Matt Wilkinson. And it specifically featured Matt Wilkinson addressing his fear, basically telling the world, yeah, I'm kind of freaked out. Like, it's going to be 8 to 10 feet. They're saying it could be even bigger. And I got to go out there and do my thing. And it's, thank God that there's, water patrol. But it's no easy feat looking down an 8-foot Chopu wave with crystal clear water and 1, maybe 2 feet depth until the reef is right there. And a few times go ahead. Yeah.
And he won that heat, I believe. They made it far in that event. You're right. He said he confronted all of that, like, admitted all the fear, but then still confronted it and made the heat.
And the commentators were talking about it. It was G, the guy, G, what his name, the Billabong Pro guy.
Yeah, the Von Zipper guy.
Yeah, Von Zipper. Anyway, it was him and others, Sean Doherty. Like, by the way, it was kind of refreshing to go back and listen to the commentary team. They were pretty good. But they all addressed Matt Wilkinson addressing his fear. And
Right.
It was out in the open and everyone was talking about it. And in many ways, they even suggested that bringing it out and talking about it was a really smart move for Matt, in that it allowed him to kind of like look at it and address it, and probably made things easier for him.
It endeared him to all of us. It's
For sure.
so relatable, And then to see him again come over that and conquer it is what was the most impressive part and memorable part about that. Another
Hey,
thing,
and the waves were huge at the 2011 Billabong Pro. So that's why I watched that. I sent that on to you, and I watched all those clips. And then that got me thinking about the Olympics. Like, how is Felipe going to handle Chopu if it's legit? Which it really hasn't been in a while for competition's sake. But if it's 8 to 10 feet at Chopu and he's representing Brazil and Gabe Medina isn't,
yeah,
like, it's not going to go good. Like, he's going to and by the way, let me say this. I would be super stoked if Felipe dominated 8 to 10 foot Chopu. Like, we all want to see him tackle this thing. It's not like we're going, oh goody, he's blowing it again. Let's just watch Felipe be, this thing. Like, I think it would be what a wonderful story if he could overcome this and to win at 8 to 10 foot Chopu, win a gold medal. I mean, that would shut us up.
Dude, I would have less of an opinion on it if he actually just said I was scared. We'd just move on. The only reason we're talking about this 2 weeks in a row is because he will not admit it and will lie to us when we can see clear as day what we're seeing. And so, yeah, I'd be great if he charged, but if he charged out there, he would need to develop that skill set. And you can only develop that skill set yesterday at Pipeline or yesterday at Cloudbreak or, in similar situations at Chopu. And I don't see him putting himself in those situations. And the other thing is, he is going to be confronted with that. And what's he going to say at that point during the Olympics? Because he's already built this narrative of, no, I'm not afraid. And I have a lion tattooed on my chest. So what does he say next time? You can't then say, hey, you guys were all right. I was lying all the time up until now. No, you either have to go or create a new excuse, you know?
Well,
He's gotten
it'll be
himself into a
interesting.
corner.
He has. Speaking of young guns on tour that are just understated and just kind of doing the work, Liam O'Brien.
I know.
Liam O'Brien's not a sexy pick. Like you're not like, okay, you can't wait for Liam O'Brien's heat, but the guy just like pounds his way through heats. Like he gets it done.
He's really impressive. He made, I think it was the final at Rottnest, the one event that
Yeah.
they did there. I feel like he made it far in a US Open one time. And yeah, contest after a contest, no matter what the waves are doing, he is a solid pick. He's got Ethan Ewing up against the ropes right now. I mean, they got 22 minutes left, but he has a 7-1-7 on the board, and
Yeah, and
Ethan's
he
got
just got a
0.
backup. He just got a
Yeah.
good backup too.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Liam
so
is a sneaky pick.
so speaking of fears, orcas, probably the the scariest mammal known to man. Orcas off of La Jolla. So turns out I know all the guys that were out there. I spoke with them on the phone. They're friends of mine that I foil with, and they're all really good surfers. And it was Mark Avina, Saxon Chang, Aaron Chang's son, Kyle Knox, Chuck Glenn, and Jonathan Luanis. Jonathan, he's the FCS rep. I'm probably butchering his last name, but I surf with him all the time. In fact, I saw him at Camp Shred the other day, right before this happened, actually. And I'll give you the sort of what I heard on the phone call. So um, basically what happened is Jonathan was down. These guys are all on downwind foils, but they also have skis. There's 2 skis and maybe 3 skis, and they're downwind foiling. And some of the guys are actually prone foiling, getting pulled into the downwind bumps and then foiling the bumps. And Jonathan was out in front of everybody and he started screaming, but nobody could really understand what he was saying because he was the furthest. And with the south wind blowing downwind, the noise doesn't carry. So Kyle Knox guns his ski up to him and he said, Jonathan foiled to him as fast as he could possibly foil to him, full speed, ran into the ski and just jumped onto the back and just started going, oh my God, there's orcas right here. There's orcas. Right then, a massive orca just like breaches right next to him. And you can see their teeth and everything, and it's just gnarly. And he said there's like 4 of them. 2 of them were like 15 to 18 feet. One of them was like 25 feet. And one of them was massive, like bigger than Shamu, bigger than anything that Kyle's ever seen at SeaWorld. Just like a beast. And these things followed him around for 10 or 15 minutes. They were super close. They were underneath the ski. Mark Avina is the guy you might see in the video where he's actually trying to catch a wave on a stand-up foil and the orcas come right underneath him. And like he falls and they're going at him, and it was just a crazy, scary moment. And Kyle was just blown away. He basically said that, he's never seen an animal that big, so close, and how fast they go. I asked him, I go, why don't you just like gun it on your skis? Like there's no outrunning those things. Like they go 35 miles per hour. You're not going to outrun them on a jet ski.
Have
Or
they
maybe fast. I don't even know, but they're just they're huge. They're massive, right? And
Have they been known to attack humans?
I'm not sure if there's like a known orca attack on a human being before. I don't know that.
Yeah.
And he said they weren't. Um, they were more like being locals than they were being like hungry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were more like vibing. They were just following them around and just checking them out. And I don't even know if vibing is the right way to characterize it. They were just being curious, perhaps, like what are these guys doing? And Kyle said it was just mind blowing, but there's probably already is a bunch of stuff on Instagram from those guys. Again, Saxon Chang's a photographer. His dad's Aaron Chang, and he's going to have a bunch of stuff. And if you run into any of these guys, and I'm going to soon, you're going to hear a great story.
I had a friend who's like he was a welder in the Navy, like underwater stuff. And he told me about a whale encounter he had one time, and just the sheer enormity of the thing was, you know, uh, bone chilling, and there was no real threat of that animal doing anything to him. But when you see something that's larger than a school bus and fully alive, and he said the eyeball too, like the eyeball opened and you could see the size of the eyeball, that it was just sends this, your reptilian spine kind of thing just activates, and you just go, wow, we are only animals on this planet, and that one is way bigger than I am and could accidentally eat me, basically.
Accidentally. Well, pretty scary stuff. And I also sent you the video, I think I sent it to you, of those, probably the same pod of orcas eating that dolphin off of Scripps
Oh,
Pier right there in La Jolla. So they seem to be lurking around the canyon that creates the wonderful waves at Blacks, that La Jolla Deepwater Canyon there. And I imagine there's probably some great food, where the shallow water meets the deep water. So pretty incredible and pretty scary. And I mean, orcas are just way gnarlier than a great white shark as far as if you should be freaked out or not, I think.
yeah. Crazy. One thing I forgot to tell you about with the Pipe Masters that I think we should touch on, or not the Pipe Masters, but the Pipe Pro, is their continued effort with this Vissla Shapers rankings.
Yeah.
They introduced it last year. This year, I feel like they're doing an even more thorough job with it. They've done some pre-packaged interviews with the guys who, were all in it last year in the final, in the top four: Matt Biolis, Britt Merrick, Marcio Zuvi, and DHD.
Yeah.
And then additionally, Eric Arakawa they interviewed, and there might be one or two others as well. So just seeing those and that engagement, I think, is fantastic. It's obviously shining a light on the boards that are being built, but seeing they're also good on camera. Like
They are. They're totally.
Eric Arakawa, like hearing him and like little insights about like Michael Ho and Andy Irons and stuff. And then this wasn't a pre-produced portion, but they interviewed Britt Merrick today talking about some new carbon technology that they're doing on some of the boards. And it's like Britt's just so good on camera.
He is. And it was really interesting. It was a wonderful piece about cut up carbon that they mix into the resin, and they do the layup that way. So it's not like carbon sheets. And he went into an explanation of it all. And you're right. All of these guys are well spoken. They communicate much better than I do, for goodness sake, which isn't saying much, but they're you learn something when you listen to them, and then DHD's always kind of got that Australian sort of fun dig, they've got like, there's some humor, there's some sarcasm there, and it's all good. I applaud Vissla, and it doesn't surprise me that, this is something that Paul nods behind. He's a big surfboard guy. He always has been. And so, the more we can discuss surfboards and the guys who build them, the more authentic. I mean, that's where authentic culture comes from, is surfboards and surfboard builders. That's what we remember. Nobody remembers what board shorts you were wearing.
And it's simply interesting. It's a
Yes.
great way to fill the time. And when people are waiting for waves, it's like the only thing, the most interesting thing that I would want to hear. So kudos to you guys for doing that. Speaking of board building and Marcio Zuvi, I'm going to publish this week an interview with Chris Ruddy. He told me his first encounter with Marcio Zuvi. Do you know this story?
No.
It's incredible, dude.
Maybe I do
Like,
know it if you tell it.
so Ruddy was working in the back of Diamond back in the day. And
Diamond glassing in Mirror Maze.
yeah. And, like to lead into the story, it's like Skip Fry and Hank Warner and like all of these touch points, right? And some guy who I forget the guy's name, who was just basically a derelict, who worked in the factory, basically a derelict, needed to be replaced. And he was kind of at his wit's end, Chris was with the guy.
Yeah.
And this guy knocks on the back door, Brazilian guy, doesn't really speak any English, but had written on a piece of paper, "I need job." And so Chris opens the door and the guy holds it up. The guy knew he wanted to work in a surfboard factory. So he shows up and holds that up to Chris. And because Chris wanted to get rid of this other guy, he's like, all right, this shows moxie and ambition. The fact that this guy doesn't speak English and he showed up like this, it was Marcio Zuvi.
That's so cool.
I
I
know.
love that.
And
I'm a huge fan.
they ended up rooming together. And, so they lived together for a long period of time, and he just kind of had story after story and really, I think, illustrated Marcio's tenacity and moxie and the reason why Marcio has elevated to the level that he's at now. And his sole focus on the pointy thruster and high performance surfing, like won't shape you an egg, won't shape you a fish. Just I'm doing this and I'm going to refine it to the point of perfection. And if you think about it, he was only really like at the level that he's at now, where guys are winning titles on his boards and stuff. He's only been at that level in the limelight for 8 years. Like there was 20 to 30 years of toiling away. And with a lot of other guys kind of getting the limelight who are his peers, but him just toiling through all of that to get to the point where he's deserves every little bit of success he has.
Yeah, I totally agree. And another guy that's, like I said, I'm a huge fan. He's really fun to talk with. He's very engaging and super smart and he's just a good human being. And there was a large contingent of guys that rode Sharp Eyes down in the Point Loma area for a long, long time before. So he had business. He was busy. And the reason he had business is because he made great boards, and he still does. And that's obvious by what we're seeing from Jack Robinson and Kanoa and of course Felipe and all the other guys that are riding his stuff. And I think I want to say maybe Levi Slauson is riding his boards, and maybe Jake Marshall. I bet Jake Marshall's on his stuff. There's quite a few guys that are ripping, that are either close to being on the CT or already on the CT that's riding Marcio's board. So tip of the cap. And I only want wonderful things, of course, for everybody, but especially for hardworking guys like Marcio, he's one of the good guys.
Totally. And great to see him in the mix with these Vissla Shaper rankings. You mentioned Camp Shred. How was it?
It was cool. It was good. Surf Ride puts on that great demo down there in Cardiff. The weather was a little bit off. It was that kind of crazy weekend last weekend, and we had tons of rain, so the water was a bit dirty. The waves were actually pretty good, but there was a lot of people you and I know in the surf industry, a lot of people that are boardroom people that I just like to go and say hi and talk to people. It's always fun catching up with people, and I don't get to do that a lot at the boardroom show because I'm so busy. At Camp Shred, I actually get to kind of hang out and talk and stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's such a cool event. I was worried about the weather, but to be honest, you guys actually dodged, I think. Like it was legit raining Thursday, maybe even Friday. And then yesterday and today, legit raining too. So you kind of got a window where the weather wasn't great, but at least it wasn't downpour, right?
No, it was fine. I mean, it was sunny. It was a little bit chilly and a little bit breezy, but Chris Cote puts on the music there, and he like sets up the lineup. I think he books all the acts, but of course he gets to play too, and so that's always fun because Chris is just such a he's into it. You know what I mean? He's fired up. He brings a lot of enthusiasm. And so that's always another highlight is just watching Chris and his group. He always seems to have a different name for his band, but anyway, it was fun.
Yeah, what is that? I remember Cut You Up. Is that the current name or is that
That
an old
might
one?
be, he might still have Cut You Up, but he had some other, and I apologize to Chris because I'm missing the exact name right now, but it's basically like Chris and Friends, and
Gotcha.
they get up there and they have a good old time. And it's just a ton of fun.
While we're talking about surfboards, Stab in the Dark series, I think episode number 2 drops today, if I'm not mistaken, this evening.
Yeah,
Uh,
tonight.
we we had a listener call in about um, making a prediction.
Well, good.
David Scott calling in to Spit Podcast, listening to January 24th, listening to your Stab in the Dark response. Fully agree. It's been an amazing Stab in the Dark. Really enjoyed seeing him in Indonesia, surfing great waves on good boards, but wanted to talk about the winner of this with that opening scene. Scott, I don't know where you got Hayden Shapes from. I really don't think he's the winner. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think the big giveaway was after the call cuts and he says the winner, he says, that's a blowout. And if we know anything about the previous winners is that CI has won, 3, which is much more than any of the other ones. Maybe Paizel has close to that. But if he were to win again, this would in fact make it a blowout. So that's who I'm riding with. I think CI is the victor yet again. Would appreciate your thoughts and keep up the work. Talk to you soon.
In episode 1, Kalohe delivers the news to his father on the phone who the winner is, but they bleep it. The editing bleeps and cuts away, but they show you the response from his father. And his response was, oh my gosh, that's a blowout. So that would be an indicator towards Channel Islands.
Oh, interesting. I guess that I missed that part. I thought it was what I gathered from it was that they were completely surprised. Like you're not going to believe who won. But I guess you could have that sort of empathetic response if it's them again, was, and so it wouldn't surprise me at all. The cool thing about Stab in the Dark is, look, all of these guys are top-notch shapers. Even if you don't make it past round 1, or if you're the unlucky 13 Xanadu, that guy's an incredible shaper. And I've ridden some fascinating fast surfboards from Xanadu. So they're all great. But it's super fun to watch the breakdown happen as each series goes live, and to see the board under a professional's feet and to get his feedback, and for you and I to just watch it. Like a lot of times you and I watch whoever ride a wave on one of the boards, and we go, oh, that board looks like it works good. And he might come in and not like it, but I'm like, I want to go check those boards out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know what thought I had today watching the Visla Shaper Rankings interview with Matt Biolis? And he's in the shaping bay with Crosby and Griffin, and they're talking about their dad, and like they're all about positivity, and they're such nice kids, and they're like doing words of affirmation and journaling and all this stuff. I was like, man, has Lost's brand identity really shifted? Because when I was a kid and Lost first came on the market, and specifically like the surfboards themselves and the team riders that they associated with were reprobates, like there was like house
Go
parties.
Cremo.
Exactly. Face tattoos, house parties, encouraging the homeless to drop in on a 6-foot ramp, completely intoxicated,
What was that guy's name?
underage. Randall.
Randall. Yeah, Randall.
Underage drinking. Like
Yeah.
that was the brand identity.
Yeah.
And And as with all things surf, when you start out small, playing that card works well. And then as soon as you get big, it's kind of like, I want to start, I need to be a little bit more appealing to a broader market, basically, if I want to sell more units, more widgets. And Matt quietly shifted. And I think honestly, San Clemente quietly shifted, like the whole culture of San Clemente. It's not just Matt, obviously, but
It's
it's like
gentrified, right? You can't afford to live there if you're a bum anymore.
fully. And so it started early with Kolohe, and Kolohe really became a very respectable, well-spoken, smart young guy. And then the Colapintos underneath. But as I thought about it beyond that, I was like, you know what? Carissa Moore, the definition of class, Caroline Marks, like his entire team has become like really polished, well-groomed, respectable, tax-paying citizens. It's the exact opposite of what it once
There used to be
was.
Lost energy drink, it was just like you just feel like ready to go, go hang out with Randall.
Exactly. So it's
they've
kind of
done
a
an about face.
funny trajectory for that brand identity. I'm not knocking it by any stretch.
No, me either.
But
Look at adaptation, evolution, it happens. And it's, I think it just speaks to where Matt is in his life too. He's a respected surfboard shaper with a family, and he's just like all of us. We've grown up a little bit, and he's matured more than others, perhaps. And it's just it
yep.
just speaks to where he's at.
Yep. I'm cool with it. I'm down with it.
Yeah.
Do you need your bathroom break yet?
Speaking of age, no, I mean, I'm okay. I think we can
Okay.
keep going until I tell you.
Yeah, we're good. I just wanted to point out I've got Surfing World issue 422 in my hand, available for purchase from any of our listeners. You mentioned Sean Doherty doing that commentary for the Billabong Pro back in 2011. He is in business with John Frank to keep the world's oldest consecutively printed surf magazine in print. And they send me a couple of boxes of it, about 40 issues, every issue. They sit in my garage, and I'm here to sell them to you if you want them in the United States. So if you were just to buy them from their website, obviously you pay the shipping from Australia to the United States for an individual unit. This way they ship me a couple of boxes and I can kind of get them to you for cover price. So they're $20, which is the cover price. And if you live outside of the US, just buy them from surfingworld.com.au. But if you want them in the US, surfsplendorpodcast.com. We've got them for you.
Well, look, Surfing World, that magazine it was basically the Surfer's Journal before the Surfer's Journal existed. It was always large images, super glossy, incredible. Who are the guys? I want to say it was Ayton was one of the photographers. I think the Poole McCoy collaboration was often featured.
Yep.
It was just, it was just a complete opposite. It was just like super beautiful and core, and it was
timeless.
And it's still here. You can still get it.
It's remarkable. And I mean, just this cover shot alone.
Yeah.
I look at this and there's a whole spread in here from this photographer. And I'm like, if that popped up on Instagram, I might look twice at it, but it does not have the impact. It is not the right platform, right? But this, with the glossiness, like you said, it's just spectacular. Some of the best oceanscape photography that I remember seeing, like incredible stuff. So having a print publication that still exists that can feature things like this is obviously very important, and I'm grateful for it. So glad to be able to do this for them.
Absolutely. I see there's a minute left, and Ethan Ewing just got an incredible wave, but fell at the end. But it looks like Ethan Ewing's going to move on. Liam O'Brien needs a 6. He just took off.
Didn't make it though.
If he comes, you've seen it. Okay.
I think mine's a little bit ahead of yours. But in the other heat in the water right now, Jake Marshall versus Connor O'Leary, I've got to say, your local boy, Jake Marshall, continues to impress.
I know he's another guy like Liam, where he just silently, quietly just does the work, gets it done. Jake
Yeah.
Marshall from Encinitas.
I know. It's really impressive, actually. I've got, before we go, if you're interested, I've got a listener line call that I would like for you to respond to that directly relates to Pipeline.
Sure, yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, let's do it. Got to turn the volume up. All right.
Hello, David. Hello, Scott. I'm calling about the Spit podcast. I've been a fairly loyal listener for many years now, 6, 7, 8, something like that, even though I don't identify necessarily as a surfer. I live in Baltimore, and I have spent some time surfing both in North Carolina and in Ocean City, and did some bodyboarding when I was younger. So I'm sympathetic to the culture, but I don't identify as a surfer necessarily. However, I love the podcast, and subsequently keep up with the WSL, and watched View from a Blue Moon last night. So just sort of keep up with the culture. Really, really appreciate what you guys do. Related, my question is, I've been watching the El Nino swells on Surfline, and as a non-surfer, certainly will never be surfing at Pipeline. I'm a little confused as to how the lineup works. Those overhead views, and especially the Surfline cams, are really interesting because it shows you a wide view. Obviously, with clips, you tend to just pick up when someone takes off on a wave. But watching the sort of entirety of the situation play out with 40 to 50 people, multiple breaks, I don't understand at all how a surfer comes out of that crowd of people and claims dominion on the wave. It just seems like everyone is sort of in the same area. So I was just curious if you guys had any insight into, how the lineup works at that level. I thought it would be fascinating to discuss. Thanks so much, and keep up the great work. I'll keep listening. Thanks. My name is Roman Keebler. I don't know if I said that. Catch you later.
You want to attempt to unpack that one?
Well, first of all, Roman, thanks for the call, and thanks for being a loyal listener. We're excited that you're with us and that you're part of the crew. It's a tough one. There's a ton of nuance, right? 50 guys out of pipe. How does the one guy get the wave? A lot of it has to do with how much time you spend in the water. And if you spend a lot of time in the water, when you paddle out, you're making eye contact with people, and people are going, oh yeah, that's Derek Ho. He friggin' grew up here. He gets to keep on paddling up to the point to the takeoff spot. And if you're me or David, you don't know anyone, and you paddle out as a newbie, and as soon as you look at somebody, they're probably going to just be like, they're, whatever, they're indifferent. They're not going to go, hey, how you doing, Derek? Oh, Derek, yeah, I saw you get a great wave. They're going to just be like, you're nobody. And it's this weird thing that you feel and you understand that you're very, very low on the rung of priority, and that you belong in the channel looking. Now, if I don't pick up on those social cues and I decide to just keep on paddling out and I'm going to catch the next set wave, there's a gauntlet of 40 guys that I have to go through, and they're all going to look, and somebody eventually is going to go, who are you? Who do you think you are paddling past me right now? Like, there's literally going to be somebody that says that. Or they're going to look at their buddy and they're going to say very loudly, hey, catch a load of this guy paddling up, back paddling me right now. Hey, buddy, I'm going on the next one, or whatever. So there's going to be some verbal stuff that happens. Now, that's the newbie, how the newbie gets dealt with. Now there's going to be, like say Eli Hanneman versus, say Jamie O'Brien. Eli knows who Jamie is. Jamie knows who Eli is. Eli's not stupid enough to back paddle or even challenge. There's going to be a crew of, like 8 to 10 that are always at the top, and that 8 to 10 changes. And you could be number 10 and be looking good, and then Jamie O'Brien and Baron Mamiya paddle out, and now you're back to number 15. And this because you spent tons of time in the water. So I think what Roman's getting at, it's interesting in that space between, say, 10 and 30, how those spots get determined, how you get to just flip on one. And a lot of that is you're getting scraps. Everyone's getting scraps. Everyone knows you're in the scrap order. Like there is kind of, it is at that point, it's kind of like whoever's deepest amongst the scrap getters, but the super top priority guys are going to paddle past everyone, sit on their spot. They're probably going to wait. They're going to wait for the right one that comes in, and everyone's going to go, oh, it's Jamie, go. And they're all going to hoot, and it's just going to happen. So there's nuance, but a lot of it is just about how much time you've put in there so that you understand where you are in the situation.
That's all very true and very specific to pipe. And then I'd say a step beyond that is that in any lineup around the world, there's jockeying for position to try to prove your own kind of bravado and prowess to be in that, priority position. And with a skill set comes an ability to take off deeper in more critical situations. And so some people will just give way knowing that they can't take off in that critical spot, but the badass will go sit there. And that means they're going to have priority in that critical spot. Or somebody will think that they can level up to that position. But if they put themselves in a critical spot and then blow a wave, then they've just invalidated themselves and they will not be welcome to go on the next one or to outposition anybody else. So there's, like you said, there is nuance. There's tremendous nuance. And so much of it comes down to these subtle little jockey staring to somebody down, outpositioning them, just proving your worth on one small wave and really ripping the bag out of it. And then you get a little bit more respect for the next one. So it's not surprising that he would be confused by seeing from that aerial shot that there are 50 people and how could you possibly organize it? But make no mistake, it susses itself out, it really does. And then the other thing is that top 10 or whatever guys that you're talking about, they put the time in when there aren't 50 guys out. They're surfing the days that are unruly. And so they've earned that spot when there were waves that actually freebies that came through, where there's waves going unridden on those days. And there is kind of a little bit more of a prove yourself. Like this is the day where we figure out who's going to actually get the 10-point ride. And so then you earned that position on those days. And so when there is 50 people out, you're in that position on those days. So it's very confusing. I don't understand it all. I've not surfed there on days like this. So I'm not claiming that I know, but I've, been in environments in other lineups where you recognize how sophisticated the nonverbal communication is and you're a part of it. And so it makes sense that would apply at Pipeline as well.
Well stated.
Great. The part of the reason I wanted to play that call for you, though, was just to hear the diversity of the audience.
Yeah, we're stoked Roman's listening, man. And
from Baltimore.
Like in North Carolina and Baltimore, probably. What's that? There's some beach in Maryland I'm trying to think of.
Well, and last week I read that listener email to you about the guy in Ontario surfing surfing the lake.
Oh yeah.
It's like, man, what a diverse listenership. It's cool to hear.
It is. It's great. We're stoked to keep calling, keep using the listener line, call in. We love to hear from you.
Yeah, call in, write in. That I should probably read the listener line number if anybody does.
We got a smoke alarm going off. Hold on for just
I'm going to read the listener line number. It's 760-237-0150. You could find it on surfsplendorpodcast.com. And then also, if you want to send an email, my email is surfsplendor@gmail.com. And I can share those with Scott if you want to send them to me. So
burning down the house here.
The other final thought on that Pipeline call was I heard some commentary about Felipe last week. Part of the reason why people are so pissed, they just felt like it's an empty lineup at Pipe. People would kill and pay great money to be out there and to surf those waves. And it really feels like a injustice to have empty waves going through in the lineup and him not clamoring for them.
Well, I will tell you one cool thing is that we sure have seen a lot of rookies seem to be able to handle it when it's just the four of them out in the water and really dominating and surfing great. And tip of the cap to the guys that surfed yesterday on the days off. And I want to say Liam O'Brien was one of those guys that paddled out there. Those are the days where you earn your stripes. You know, speaking to Roman specifically, those are the days that people go to Foodland and they're like, "Wow, did you see Liam? I saw Liam get a sick one." And eventually, after 8 years of people talking about you at Foodland, the the crowd parts and you move from number 30 to number 20, and then you're number 20, and then you're number 10, and then maybe you might be back to number 15. But that's a great example of there are many great examples of this, and one of them is Ballroom Stack. Like he's a great example. Here's a guy who won the Pipeline Masters. Didn't he win the Pipe Masters last year? Yeah,
he did.
The Vans Pipe Masters 2 years ago. I mean, here's a guy from New York City, hungry. And there's a lot of guys, and believe me, he did the hard yard,
on the days that nobody wants to surf it when it's big.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect segue, Scott Bass, to my must-see moment presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com, the only petroleum-free surf wax. Balaram is in Fiji right now, and yesterday, the first bombing swell of 2024 hit the reef, and in the water, Mick Fanning, Joel Parkinson, Ian Walsh, Nathan Hedge, Dean Morrison, along with Balaram Stack and his girlfriend, Eden Edwards. And Eden Edwards presents my must-see moment this week. Balaram Stack's girlfriend got a roll-in that doubled up on the reef, full keg, and she charged it.
That's sick. That takes a lot of moxie. Did she come out?
She got knocked off by the spit, but she pulled into the square keg. There was nowhere else to go and got blown out and then ate it with the spit.
Right there at Shish Kebab. She probably,
yes.
That is a gnarly section. That's what's so gnarly. And you and I have spoken about this at length, but I'll just bring it up one more time. Cloud break is one of those waves that the further you go, the gnarlier it gets. And right when you think, the left at Kandui left is like this too. By the time you're finished with the wave, it's at its shallowest and you don't want to fall there. It's just brutal. And good for her, man. Tip of the cap to, what's her name? Eden Edwards. Yeah. Eden Edwards. Congratulations, Eden.
I mean, again, and it's a legit swell too. And it's a roll in. So it's like she gets in easy, but it's still triple overhead. You know what I mean? It's still a crazy roll in.
That's so gnarly.
And when you see the thing starting to ledge, you're like looking at her going,
uh-oh,
she has nowhere to go. Like she has to pull in on this thing. And she does. And the thing just absolutely opens up into a cavern. And so Surfline posted the clip on their YouTube account. I'll post it with today's show notes. But Eden Edwards provides my must-see moment, presented by Treeswax. And Balaram, that's pretty incredible to have your girlfriend out there with you.
That's cool. I have a must-see moment presented by Treeswax as well. You may have seen this. I saw it today. It's called What We Found in the Pacific Day 2, Part 2. And it's Nathan Florence and John Florence by themselves, a couple other buddies, a filmer, surfing the super gnarly reef pass. I think it's in the Marshall Islands somewhere, definitely in the Central Pacific. And it's just draining 6 to 8 foot, heaving deep water blue barrels. You probably saw some clips of the first day where it was just too massive and Nathan tried to surf it, but it was like 15 feet. And it's this type of wave that comes from deep water, and immediately the bathymetry is such so that it just hits shallow water, and it kind of does like a swimming pools type vibe if you've ever surfed swimming pools on Namotu, but we're talking like open ocean swimming pools vibe where it goes from deep to shallow and the whole ocean looks like it's lifting up and unloading on the reef. And Nathan Florence did a great job of taking his GoPro and showing you how it goes from 3 feet to 130 feet in about, a span of about 6 feet. It just goes super deep, super shallow. And John and Nathan are out there hooting each other into perfection. I don't know about perfection. It was, it was a gnarly situation, and every wave, a lot of the waves, they had to kind of kick out the back before they got exploded. But check it out. What we found in the Pacific Day 2, Part 2, it's going to be on Nathan Florence's YouTube channel, which I'm sure everyone's already seen.
YouTube's become the platform. I mean, I find so many gems on there now from so many different people. So
Well, there's so much, the university of YouTube.
I know.
You wouldn't believe how many silly guitar lessons I get involved in and this and that, and if I need to, like, I need a Photoshop trick, I'm like, oh, how do you make a drop shadow?
Yeah.
Go to YouTube.
It is the best time to be a fan of surfing. I've said it, the worst time to be a fan of professional surfing, or the most frustrating professional competitive surfing, but a great time to be a fan of surfing in general, because there's so much content everywhere.
By the way, we're into the round of 16 already. I think Ethan Ewing got through the first heat. He beat Liam O'Brien, I believe. And there's about 4 minutes left. You're probably watching it too, but pretty, it's sort of this just turning into this like 4-foot backdoor day.
Yeah.
Which is kind of a bummer. But I believe that as we get into probably one more day of competition, maybe 2 for the men, I think that they'll be able to pull it off so that we're in some pretty solid surf. If they can wait until this weekend, Saturday the 10th, they could finish it in some pretty good waves, I believe. Maybe even Friday the 9th, Saturday the 10th. Surfline's saying tomorrow is 6 to 8 feet, but they're calling today 6 to 8 feet. It doesn't seem like it's 6 to 8 feet, but
so maybe they'll run the women tomorrow, and then that'll put them in a position to finish on Saturday.
That would be cool. Friday and Saturday potentially, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, well, I like it.
That'd be good. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's been entertaining. There is no doubt about that.
We were hyped.
Yeah. So, by the way, congratulations to the WSL. They've been catching a lot of flack. I will say that the actual surfing that I'm watching, the competition, has been very engaging. There's been a ton of rides. There's been a lot of surfing happening. And there's been all these buzzer beaters. It's been entertaining. It's been good competition. It's why we love professional surfing. It's why we love competition surfing.
It's why we love pipe.
It's why we love pipe. Let's just be real. Pipe. We love pipe. And I like Lexus. I'm a fan of Lexus. Okay. Tell you what. Until next
I am too.
Okay,
I wasn't saying I wasn't.
Yeah, you better be. Until next time, adios and aloha.